Hi everyone, welcome to Women's Health Matters podcasts. And on this podcast, we cover every area that's to do with women's health. So be it to do with your health, your hormones, fertility, you could be in perimenopause or menopause, or even in the aging process. You could be struggling financially, looking for a new career. And I've had all these amazing women and men talking about their journeys to what they've been doing. And today I'm joined by a friend of mine. Her name is Eileen Heneghan. She's based in Feathered. And I met Eileen years ago through our children. And Eileen knew as an acupuncturist, and I trained with her with Reiki 1 and Reiki 2. And I have to say, when I first did it, we had to do this initiation process. And I was really scared because I was in quite a bad place myself at that time, that she'd like see right through me and see into my soul and all the things that were going on. But actually, it was so helpful. I can't tell you, it was like this big weight lifted off my shoulder. I don't know if I've ever said that to you. I could get emotional now saying it, but it was an amazing time. So thank you. Anyway, I'm going to let you introduce yourself while I compose myself, introduce you, and tell us how you became how you started this journey.
Thank you so much, Lucy. It's a great joy for me to join you today and your audience. And thank you very much for that lovely reminder of how beautiful the awakening to your own true self was through Reiki 1 and 2. And it was a great honor for me actually to facilitate that. So my name is, as you've said, Eileen Heneghan, and I live in Feathered in County Tipperary. I'm the eldest of, I'm the eldest of two girls, and I come from a fairly regular background in terms of, not anything alternative or probably deeply conservative in ways, a medical background. My parents were GPs and my sister is a radiologist. So I started after school on a pathway of refusing to go to university, which was encouraged because I decided I wanted to do nursing. I had never expressed any interest in that. And in truth, it was a friend of mine, a dear friend called Astrid, who I said, I'll go too. So I completed my general nursing training at St. Vincent's Hospital in Dublin, and I stayed on and staffed in the renal and metabolic unit for a year. And from there, I moved then to the Coombe. At that time, it was called Coombe Lying In Hospital. It's now Coombe Women's Hospital, and studying midwifery. And it had recently gone from being a 12-month course to a 2-year course. And I found the transition quite difficult. The structure, it was actually much more relaxed. I found it hard to hear, to bring myself into it. But after 6 months, I really loved it. And that work has been very precious to me, and the memories of the camaraderie, the labour ward experiences where I ended up, actually, and I stayed on and staffed until I got married there. And it's certainly, in my general training, I was at a lot of deaths, and people used to tease me in a way around, they used to say, oh, you're coming on duty tonight. And, that did happen a lot. And it was more in hindsight that I looked back and remembered that. But for me, the birth of a baby is similar. Death and birth are the same. And some people would say that we actually die to what we've been as we're born, and then we're reborn as we go back to spirit. But one way or the other, it's a very precious, sacred moment. And there's that moment when the baby is born before the first cry, the first breath, and there's this sort of suspension. And it is like, if you can be present to that, it's like it's such presence of the being coming in. And it's the exact same as somebody makes the transition back. So after that, then I got married, came to Tipperary and settled for a while. And then I started in South Tipperary General Hospital, which is now Tipperary University Hospital. And I worked in the labour ward there, but also in other areas. It was rotation. And then sort of came the personal part of midwifery for me. I got pregnant in 1993, and unfortunately that pregnancy ended in a miscarriage at 12 weeks. It was a blighted ovum, and so I was having a very personal experience around what many people unfortunately go through. And then I was lucky to have 2 children after that, Philip, who's now 28, nearly 28, and Zoe, who's 25. So the journey for me then, when I had Philip, I also took on a promotional, as in I became a ward sister, which is now called a clinical nurse manager, level 2, on the gynae ward. And so I journeyed through that second pregnancy while taking on that new role, while moving house twice. So there was a lot going on many levels. And I ended up having an emergency section, which I didn't expect, and some complexity afterwards, UTI, mastitis, etc. And I then journeyed on for the first 12, 16 weeks, having not very well, not realizing I wasn't very well. And my sister got married at Christmas, and there was a lot, we were very busy with that as well, and the new baby, etc. And I then developed a condition called erythema nodosum. When by the time that was probably, fully diagnosed, I had to actually go to hospital and didn't respond to the initial treatment, ended up having steroids. The baby had to come with me. Philip, he was 16 or 17 weeks at this point, and I was breastfeeding him exclusively. He had never had a bottle, or very little. He had never had formula, and when I had to take the steroids, I was told I could no longer feed him. And that was devastating. Even now, thinking back to that, I get emotional, because I fed him at 6 a.m. and that was it. And he refused to take a bottle. And in the end, the most senior midwife in the nursery, a wonderful woman called Eileen Heneghan, set up a screen, and he finally yielded. But it was very difficult. And so that was hard. And then after, I was 3 weeks in hospital, and then I went back for a review a month later, and all my glands were up, and I went into a post-viral fatigue, fibromyalgia. So I was essentially really broken on all levels, physically, emotionally, mentally, even spiritually. I felt very, very depleted. And I suppose looking back, I probably was depressed. So it was a year journey where I started to explore then the alternatives. The consultant I attended said, you need to look at your lifestyle, you need to look at other things. I was so grateful to him. So I went down the route of, many.
The surgeon told you that, Sorry, I'm interrupting.
The physician.
A musician?
The physician.
Oh, physician. You're very lucky.
The physician, the doctor.
Yeah. Because
very lucky.
Very lucky, because a lot of physicians would not give you that advice, unfortunately.
No, that's absolutely true. So I'm very grateful that was Sam Kingston. So I gradually returned to my work and continued on, having some treatments. And then when I was expecting Zoe, somebody said to me, you should have Reiki. And I'd never heard of it. And at that time, there was only one person in Tipperary actually practicing it. And I went to her for some sessions before she was born. She was in an elective section, and that was smoother, although she was low birth weight, and Philip fractured his elbow quite badly when she was 3 weeks old. So there was quite a lot going on. But so that was fine. I did that for a bit. And then when she was, I'm probably going into too much detail, rush me on if you need to, Lucy, but basically when she was about 18 months, another friend had been given a gift of a Reiki treatment with a person who taught it as well. And I was staying with her that day, and the change in her in 1 hour was such that I said, whatever that is, I must go and explore it. So I did go, and it was quite a life-changing moment. It was, it became my first. She was my first teacher, and I did Reiki 1 with her too, and Reiki Master Sakine over a period of some time. And what I realized really is that all the time I was becoming more and more interested in why does a well person get ill having something that's natural like a baby? What are the factors that, influence our lives, and the realization of stress and maybe not being clear enough in what I wanted, and sort of a whirlwind going on around me. So I continued on. I did Reiki Master, and I was still working. I was job sharing by now, and I saw occasionally people on my week off, but I was primarily doing it for myself and my family and some close friends. And then I think it was when Zoe was just coming to 5, she was about 4.5, I did the foundation course of Orosoma. These are the bottles behind me, the equilibrium bottles. And that was taught over 2 weekends. So you went for 3 days, 2 weeks later, 3 days. And a week or 2 weeks before that, I did Sakine, which is Reiki Master would be the mastership in the earth energies. Sakine is air, fire, and water. So it brings it all together. And I really or summer training, I was working in the hospital. When I came back 2 weeks later, I had left. And I'm not somebody, as you can hear from me, change was difficult along the way. So what happened was my childcare collapsed very suddenly, literally overnight. And I was in a situation where I had no one to mind the children. And I hadn't taken parental leave because I was in management and job sharing. If I took that, I wouldn't be there at all. And I sat in a lot of committees that involved, where I was the only job sharing person at that.
So the signal
like 5 weeks or 6 weeks, because
sorry,
Zoe was going to be 5 in June.
I'm going to interrupt you. Sorry, the signal keeps going in and out. Maybe turn off your camera for a little bit and then come back on again.
Turn off my camera for a bit. Yeah.
Do that.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
That's much better now. Yeah. So we got to when you lost the childcare with Zoe when she was 5.
Yes, the childcare collapsed, and I had nobody to mind them. Even though their dad, when my husband Aidan is a farmer and he was quite hands-on, I still needed extra help, and I had help in the home. The person who minded them came to our house. So I approached our matron and asked, could I have the paternal leave that was due to me, which was about 6 weeks before, because it ended when she was 5 and I hadn't taken any of it for her and very little for Philip. So I was allowed. And so in that period of time, we had a holiday booked, and I never forget, I used to get up very early in the mornings and really prayed and meditated for a sign. And one morning I woke up and I just thought, I'm just going to see what will happen if I take a year's leave of absence. So I actually took a year's leave of absence, and my phone started ringing. I never advertised, people just came. And the following February, people asked me to teach them Reiki. So I taught my first Reiki 1, and I continued taking the leave. And after 5 years, I retired completely from the health service. And I continued on my pathway to develop my healing practice and training practice, which I'm very fortunate has been a great joy and has been successful. And when I say successful, I mean successful in being able to support people awakening to who they truly are. You know, the word healing it's almost a cliche now these days, Lucy. And what it really means is healing means coming back to wholeness, coming back to the individual that you are, it's even what who you really are behind all the layers, behind the masks that we all wear, you know, are the labels that we have. You know, we are women, we are men, we are sons, daughters, sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews. We have work roles, we have social roles, and some people have, you know, even more public roles. But when we take all those layers away, like, who is the being who's come into incarnation on the earth at this time of absolute huge change? And I believe we're in a very big ascension process where we're really awakening to the truth of who we are, developing our light body, and are, you know, fulfilling our mission and purpose as souls. Everybody is equal, even though on the 3D level it does not look like that. But you know, when we reach higher to see a broader vision. And I think the biggest key for people is to realize that they make a difference, that every individual counts, every individual is part of this. It's not just a few people. You know, the time of the gurus is coming to an end. You know, the hierarchical structure, much more about circles, about community, about everybody having their part and valuing it. You know, Rumi had that quote a long time ago, is, you know, you're not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in a drop. Your drop carries the whole ocean. So we have within us all of everything, and it's a question of remembering. We have a lot of conditioned patterns that we need to release and work through, and that comes from, you know, the soul as we incarnate has the consciousness of the soul's evolution at that point in time, and then all of the genetics of the mother, all of the genetics of the father, and that then we develop. So when we come in, we have the circumstances that our family, that we're born into. We have whether we're in what country we're in, what nationality, what religion, what social background, what ethnic background. All of that has a very big influence, and that's what we have chosen. I meet people every day who'd say, well, I wouldn't have that mother, or I might have had a different father, or I'd be an only child, or I'd only have had but the pod that we come into has been pre-chosen. It's not as it from a human level. And a lot, of course, no one would say when somebody's in a very difficult starting off circumstance that they, it would be very unfair to say, oh, well, you chose that. What I'm saying is that at the higher consciousness level, the soul has wanted to have that experience. And through that purification that may come through suffering, we actually develop compassion. And that is really part of what we're here for. And I believe we're bringing in a whole new time. And I think that, this wave is growing. It's not reported that much because, the media are only interested in bad news. I remember working with a journalist once who actually delivered news, and I was saying to him, why could there not be just even a little piece at the end of the news to say the good things that have happened? And he just burst out laughing. He said, because that doesn't work. People don't want it. And they spent hours looking at what the most disastrous things and grading them and then placing that in the order to deliver it. So, a lot of people, I think actually, perhaps it's I'm not suggesting people don't stay informed, but I do think that hearing things over and over ad nauseum that are negative can have a very negative impact and drive up anxiety levels and frustration and anger in some people. So I think we have to realize that we have our life and we have to make the very best and do our part in our service for others. But we can only do that once we come to learn to, first of all, accept ourselves as we are rather than how we think we should be. And then to learn to really love ourselves, like the work of Louise Hay, who's been here, she was, and many others, where you actually realize that, I suppose it is about, that word responsibility, the ability to respond and the ability to know wherever you are right here, right now, is exactly where you're meant to be. And all change takes place in the now moment, but we tend, again, as humans, to move backwards or forwards. So we're either stuck in loops of the past, recreating them, or we are projecting into the future, into the never, never, this might happen, or being wistful. I also meet people who are waiting for something to happen, like they're waiting to retire in order to live their lives. They're waiting till their children are fully grown, till they take some time for themselves. And of course, if you are in the role of a parent and you're minding children, you can't renege on that. But there is also always the possibility. I think sometimes people think they need a vast amount of time, whereas an awful lot can be achieved in, taking some quiet time, spending time in nature. I'm a huge advocate of that, and most people can access that. If you live in a city, you can get to a park. If you're living in the country, it's easier, just spending some quiet time. And because of the influences of, particularly of social media, our minds are on high alert. Stopping, even when you hear people talking about stories on, say, Instagram or, looking at TikTok, what will stop people? It's not to read, they no longer read. It's like, what will stop you in the flashing of your eye? And so it's always on to the next thing. And then we also have that influence of somebody outside us. When we were speaking earlier, about, people wanting to be uniform. And I think women have, we've talked about sort of women's emancipation, but actually maybe we're not as tied in the patriarchy anymore, although I think there's aspects that we still have a lot of work to do on. But now we are under the influence of, Botox and facelifts and looking a certain way, being a certain way, behaving in a certain way. And, the power, like the huge power of the feminine is not being recognized. I mean, in the end of the day, it's women who give life. The journey from menarche through the fertility years, through menopause, they are wonderful. They are potentially wonderful key moments that should be celebrated. And the journey, of coming into, because in this world that's false in a way, that where our values are going, expecting perfection the whole time. And of course that in itself is an illness, because when you are already something, you can't become it. So humans are already perfect, except we think otherwise. So I think to be able to move through those cycles with proper support is really important. And that's why your work, particularly around the area you're coaching in now, Lucy, of menopause,
yeah.
This is women coming into the true wisdom years. It's that really liberation and out of this, when we talk about women menstruate the 13 cycles a year when they're in a normal setting. And like the Mayan calendar celebrates 13 equal months of 28 days. So they say that that 13th month that isn't recognized in our Gregorian calendar is the missing feminine. So in a way, when we come to menopause and we no longer have our monthly bleed, we come into a big cosmic awareness. It's almost like we come into a much greater time of the feminine and its expression. And instead of, in some cultures, the older you are, the more revered you are. So we need to come back nearly to that here in Ireland, where, in our deeper past, the wise women were recognised.
Absolutely, they 100% were, and we don't recognise our wise women now. We look at them as old. There's so many horrible words for menopausal women now: wizened, past it, old, yes, crone. I can't even, and they're absolutely not any of those things. They are full of life, full of wisdom, full of things that they've done and achieved, and and what they can, achievements to come, goals and aims. Yeah, it's huge, actually, very big. I completely agree with you. Again, when we were talking earlier, you mentioned that you did, going back a little bit, in the hospital, you did lots of work bringing in new strategies and things, but you also mentioned that you do this meditation, I hope I'm saying this right, every month, or I think, no, once a year, sorry, in November, recognizing miscarriage, again, like the feminine side, prenatal early deaths, and tell us a little bit about that work that you do.
We were what was wonderful about working at that, those they were great years. We did a couple of things. We did one of them was to reduce anxiety in pre-op women. I think that I'd just like to mention that, because when people come in for an elective procedure, it can be quite stressful, and people, sometimes information wasn't being given, and we did a short, but it would warrant even more research, where if you give information to the person prior to coming to the hospital, when the decision has been made that they might need the surgery, and then when you outline what will happen when they come, and when they came, then we guaranteed a visit from a theatre sister, a blessing from a priest or a vicar if they wished to have that, a physiotherapist doing relaxation, breathing and meditation pre-op, somebody having the same person looking after the patient. And then it was proved that pain relief was much reduced and discharge was earlier when that happened. So that was really very exciting. We presented it and won a prize actually at an international competition. And then what you've asked me there, we also, this gynae unfortunately has the sadder side of midwifery. So we dealt with a lot of people having, miscarriages, stillbirths, and fertility investigation and treatment. So November is traditionally considered to be the month where the dead, our loved ones who have deceased, are remembered. And so I set up, with the help of my team, and it still continues, we have an evening of remembrance for the babies lost through either miscarriage, stillbirth or neonatal death. It's held within the it's an ecumenical event, so there's a priest maybe and a vicar as well, but there would also be some possibly music staff, both medical staff, nursing staff, auxiliary staff, and then the public. And when we started it in the first year, particularly, it was so moving, because people came back who had lost babies 30, 40, some 50 years earlier. And there was a particular couple who had 4 daughters who were all adults, and they lost twin boys in a late miscarriage. Like, their hearts were broken, but as they cried their tears and as they were supported through that, it was just so moving. And it was so, in that word again, healing, so coming to terms with something that had happened a very long time ago but hadn't been acknowledged. And I think that is, we can't make things right sometimes for people, but a supportive, listening ear, a kind heart, and then a celebration where community comes together and acknowledges them. We also had, we brought the Miscarriage Association of Ireland, which is a very good charity. They came and gave some lectures, first of all to the hospital and then into the community. And we have a pack that people got as well. And they have also a service of remembrance on a national level in November. They have a plot in St. Patrick's Cemetery that is dedicated to all babies lost, and some are buried there. And you know, so it's very important, because I think, you know, people don't like to see people upset. So sometimes they're saying, you know, oh well, you were only 7 weeks, or you're only 10 weeks, or you'll have another one. And of course, those sort of lines are not really helpful, even if they're meant. I think women feel that they're failing in some way, you know, that they have failed to carry the pregnancy. And that in itself, why can't they be like other people? And then it's not spoken about, because often people don't say that they're pregnant in the earlier part of pregnancy. And then if you've had a sequence of miscarriages, getting pregnant is no longer a joy, because there's that terrible worry. Is this going to happen again? And, you know, so I think that this, and also with the increased fertility treatment, which has a huge impact both physically and emotionally on people, and indeed on every level, there's a real need for support. Whereas the advances in medicine have been huge, and we've acknowledged that, I think we have to see the whole person. And hospitals at this point in time are very busy places. And so I think it's the government should invest in really bringing in these supports. Everyone deserves them. It shouldn't be just for those who can afford it.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I think when you're on your fertility journey, IVF is an amazing treatment.
Yes.
If there's something structurally wrong with either you or your partner. But if you feel, if there's an inconclusive note, there's no reason why either of you can't, well, both of you, you know, that both of you are okay, they can't find a reason. And that's actually 40% of couples that are trying.
Yes.
You need to investigate it further, because there is a reason, but don't just go for IVF when you can't find out what's going on. I think
absolutely, Lucy.
You know, really need to find
reasons. I had a lady with me actually this week. Oh no, she wasn't with me this week. She had her baby this week, but she has a 7-year-old, and she had, I think, six losses between miscarriages and IVF, and this was a spontaneous pregnancy, having had some treatment and using Orasoma. Yeah. So you know, I agree with you, particularly when you know that there is no medical reason. I think it is worthwhile. And, you know, also what I see is that what's not dealt with in the previous generations comes down to pass. You know, it's not the same thing, but if there's been a lot of stress, if there's been a lot of grief, you know, that doesn't, you know, we everything is cyclical. We meet it again and again until it is sorted. And the lineages of the families take that too. And that's, again, why the soul chooses to come into a particular setup.
It's very interesting, actually, you should say that, because I really do agree on all of those things, actually, that can be a reason why it doesn't happen. Yep, can be, not all of the reasons, but I think, it's to be investigated. And I think also it's to, through the work that you do, it's not to be, you know, as I said it right at the beginning, you know, I thought you were going to see right into my soul, you know, the badness that I thought was there and there wasn't, and it was reaching out and asking for help is one of the things that are vitally important, I think, for any woman or man that are in any difficulty within their life, you know, whatever it is, however big or small or silly that you think it is, there's always someone there to actually help you reach out, because it's something that Absolutely. I've learned to do myself, and it is empowering, and I wouldn't have been able to do half things I've done without people's help.
And I completely agree with you, and I would be the same if I hadn't, you know. And I think that's what, no man is, you know, again, that cliche, no man, no woman is an island. But I really do believe in the power of the community, the power of the circle, the power of, and, you know, in this podcast is primarily around women, but again, for men, and we see the men's sheds, you know, how men don't really communicate their emotions that easily, but when they're working with a piece of wood or metal, you know, they've had they have had very good, movement, you know, and supports going through hard times, or, you know, on the grief journey, or the journey towards of change. And you see, that's the other thing, you know, it's a physics law of change is a constant. Life is never going to stay the same. a good moment will not remain, or a sad moment won't remain. But we have to learn to flow. And I think if we cut ourselves off, we can make it a lot harder.
Yeah, it is. It's actually, that's very beautiful.
For the help.
Learning to flow, isn't it? It's just learning that flow in life, coming in and out. Yeah. So going back again a little bit for you, how when you came out of hospital and you had that awful diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which quite a lot of women I see have that. What was your journey to recovery? What did you do what steps did you take? Your physician said, look at your life, which was amazing advice. But what next step did you do?
Well, I think then when he said, you're not going to go back to work for some time, I was pretty devastated initially by that, because I was a strong part of my identity. And I suppose then I basically learned to let go, Lucy. That was the biggest thing. I learned to let go. I learned that other people needed to have help. So I had some counseling, which was helpful. And then it became almost like counseling, coaching. So, and I had acupuncture, which I feel is you're a very experienced acupuncturist, and we're blessed in our community now even more to have more again. But I had acupuncture. I also had massage. I worked through Orasoma. And I continued, I remember at the beginning as well, developing an exercise routine. I remember he told me you can walk for 5 minutes every day. And I remember thinking, I used to walk for 2.5 hours at a time. So it was all of that, having to come back and start slowly and build. And I think with all of our recovery, whatever we're recovering from, it's incremental steps rather than big leaps, or putting the bar so high we fail and then we get back into that circle again. So it was forwards and backwards a bit. We had a very good summer in 1995, and I spent a lot of time near water at the beach with the water body, which I really, we are 70% more when we're born of water. So the ocean really helps us, or all water, and again that's the moon influencing the water. What else? I suppose, and I continued then. When I started, it really took me though. It took me till the birth of Zoe, and afterwards, really, it was 6 years, and then I look back now and I think, that was one of them. It was what really was the game changer, for want of a word. It was what started the transformation that continues. And I remember sort of thinking at a certain point, well, we're at the point now where we're there. I've learned what I need, not facetiously that I've learned everything I need to know, but I really realize now that we are continuously evolving, we're continuously learning, we're continuously being, but it's not on a mental level only, it's also on the, as I say, the spiritual, the soul level, and that's becoming more and more it was accessible to people. There was a time in the 80s when the word Reiki, people would look at you and think you were some sort of maybe a witch or somebody who, whereas now, people recognize it. They recognize acupuncture, which has proved itself for thousands of years. Yeah. Astrology is also a very useful tool. And I did have a reading subsequently, or a consultation, and I had a very big square going on through that time of illness, where Pluto, which rules my chart, was crossing my sun. So it made utter sense that it was a devastating, transformational, but ultimately bringing me towards the light. And so, and my work, what's so lovely about it, and, when the pandemic came, as it stopped everybody in their tracks in terms of how we were working, I had to come, to embrace the internet more, and Zoom, which is such a useful tool. So I during the lockdowns, obviously I wasn't able to meet people physically, but I was able to energetically work with people online, or in absence, or through phone. And I taught us, there were a few things. I led my meditation groups, and I brought my yoga class. I teach a gentle yoga class once a week, and I'm delighted now to be back in person again. So, but we did it through Zoom. But I also had more opportunity for meditation and reflection, prayer. And I had already had a workshop of my own with crystals called Fire Up Your Inner Dragon. The dragons are a bit like they're part of the angelic realm. And that was going very, I received 3 symbols over a period of time in meditation, and their names. And I often wondered actually, how do people get symbols, but it came as clearly as I'm looking at you on this screen. And then the crystals to accompany it, which are a rose quartz charger and apophyllite. And so what came then through in the next year was the actual course itself, which is called Cosmic Heart Activation. Very beautiful, very empowering. It's just a day, but the morning is spent meditating with the crystals, and then there's a short initiation, and then the symbols, and then there's a specific healing that's done with a person lying down, and the receiver lies down, and the apophyllite is put into a 5-pointed star around them. So it's like creating an energy field charged up by the rose quartz charger, and the symbols are drawn. And then what's really interesting is there's a quiet period of about 15 minutes. And in that, there's a certain sequence that goes on beforehand, but then in that 15 minutes, I presume that it would just be silence and holding the space of the person. But actually what has happened is that the giver, whatever gifts they naturally have, they bring them to that. So it could be somebody who's interested in ancestral healing doing a piece, somebody giving a little bit of Reiki, somebody using some extra crystals, somebody somebody sang for the person who was lying in this, she has a beautiful voice. Somebody else just did a meditation holding the vision of that person going into their best life. And then at the end, there's a piece to close it. But it's very powerful both to do the core, I don't like the word even course, it's like to have the experience, because it raises vibration. And we know all of us are vibrate. Everything on this planet vibrates. There is nothing we think everything is solid, or not everything, but certain what is solid. Even things that are solid are atoms moving. They just don't move as fast as the other parts. So in our physicality, all our organs are vibrating. And then we've got our emotional body, our mental body, and our spiritual body, which are vibrating at a higher level. So we don't see those unless you're clairvoyant. So I suppose the Cosmic Heart Activation is opening us up to cosmic energies that have influenced it and coming in to support us. But it's also our vibrational field grows. So it informs all parts of your life, which is lovely. And I suppose, with all the different things that I offer, between crystals, or Soma, Reiki, Sakine, meditation, yoga, they're all spiritual tools that help you come home to who you truly are. And it's like listening to different wavelengths on when you're driving, so like a range of different stations, different vibrations, so people will, and I think sometimes it's also like a rainbow, it's not just one thing, it's a tapestry. Acupuncture might be helpful, or something else might be helpful. But I think the nurture of the body is very important as well. And some spiritually minded people are very interested only in the chakras up from the heart, whereas I think our solar plexus, sacrum, and root are really important. And so it's very important to be grounded, or some people don't like that word, but I still like it, grounded in our physicality, embracing our body, loving our body, expressing ourselves. And humans are creative, and creativity isn't just painting, art, and music, which it includes. We're very creative in everything we do, or not do.
It's very, very interesting you say that, because creativity in Chinese medicine comes from the kidney energy, but it's also fear. But we use that creativity and curiosity as we get older, because we're, as you said, we're programmed not to be like that anymore. Like when we get to a certain age, we're not allowed to be creative or be curious about things, because that's just the blueprint that we've been given. So it is about going back to that, getting on the floor and falling through the grass like little kids do again, getting back to that. And that really helps to energize you, energize your kidney. Again, that's very important as we age, that process.
Absolutely. And isn't it interesting as well that there, the doodle books now, even for adults and colouring, how, and I also think that, for people who, the other thing is, the pen never lies. So if you don't have to be a writer, but I think there's huge benefit in morning pages, or writing it if the morning isn't the time for you, to have a notebook and just to write, or even write a question.
Yeah.
And allow your hand to answer it.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Useful. Yes, but I think it's the lightening up, Lucy, as well. As you're saying, lightening up. We take ourselves terribly seriously.
Yeah, we do. We actually do.
And we can do big work through joy as well, and a bit of playtime.
Yeah, Absolutely. Now, you were saying when we were coming to the end of this podcast, you were going to say a prayer for us. So I'd love if you could do that now.
Oh yeah, I was going to. So just invite everyone to just close their eyes and to drop into just your awareness from your head into your heart. So just moving from thinking through feeling to being. Let's just together take 3 deep breaths just where we are now. And after me, you might like to say aloud or silently, may I be safe and protected.
May I be safe and protected.
May I be happy and peaceful.
May I be happy and peaceful.
May I be healthy and strong.
May I be healthy and strong.
May I live at ease.
May I live at ease.
And then may you be safe and protected.
May you be safe and protected.
May you be happy and peaceful.
May you be happy and peaceful.
May you be healthy and strong.
May you be healthy and strong.
May you live at ease.
May you live at ease.
And finally, may all sentient beings be safe and protected.
May all sentient human beings be safe and protected.
May all sentient beings be happy and peaceful.
May all sentient beings be happy and peaceful.
May all sentient beings be healthy and strong.
May all sentient beings be healthy and strong.
And may all sentient beings live at ease.
May all sentient beings live at ease and peace.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you. That's been really amazing. That prayer is so beautiful and so reflective of what we've been talking about.
That's well, of course, that comes from that's the Buddhist peace prayer, but a very beautiful one. And if you're very frustrated with somebody, if you can bring yourself to say it for them, it really helps, because everybody is another me. You are another me. I'm another you. So whatever is being mirrored to us is something we need to look at ourselves. Where at the same time we still need to, hold what's true to us as well and live that to our best.
Absolutely. Eileen, you've been an amazing guest, really, really insightful, and I could talk to you about loads of things. I'll have to have you a guest on again. So if anyone would love to do your Cosmic Heart course or get in contact with you, how can they do that?
And they can contact me through my, they can see more about it on my website, which is www.eileenheneghan.ie, or they can contact me through info@eileenheneghan.ie, or they can phone me on 052 613 1445, and there's a mobile number also on the website. And I'd be delighted to meet anyone who'd be interested in exploring their journey further. And thank you, Lucy, for this wonderful opportunity to come and have a lovely chat with you. And it's, as always, a joy to be in your presence.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for everyone for listening. And please don't forget to subscribe. And also, just to let you know, on the 27th of July at 7:30, which is Wednesday week, I'm going to be doing a live brand new perimenopause masterclass to help you on your journey in this particular stage of your life. So thank you for listening, and thanks so much, Eileen. Thank you.